My girlfriend and her so-called best male friend teamed up to trick me into going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a marriage license. They wanted to see me get rejected and make a fool of myself in public. Her best male friend even started a live stream, ready to record my humiliation. My girlfriend looked down on me from above. "You don't deserve me. This was just a joke." I ignored them and walked straight inside. When I came out holding the still warm marriage certificate, her smile froze instantly. She stared anxiously at the red booklet in my hand. "You actually got the license? With who?" Chapter 01. June sunlight was so scorching it felt like it could melt the ground. I stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, feeling the blood in my body evaporating bit by bit under the blazing sun. Lily, my girlfriend of 3 years, was clinging to her so-called best male friend, Kevin, with a perfectly rehearsed smile on her face, one mixed with pity and mockery. "Marcel, you didn't seriously think I'd get a marriage license with you, right?" Her voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a poison blade stabbing straight into my heart. "Look at you. Do you even have $500 to your name? A man of mine can't be some broke loser." Next to her, Kevin, the slick-haired, overly groomed rich boy, was holding up his phone. The camera was pointed at me, and I could clearly see the bullet comments flying across the screen. "Ha ha ha. The streamer's killing it. Best public humiliation of the year. Look at his dumb expression. Pathetic. A toad dreaming of eating swan meat. He deserves the embarrassment." Kevin's grin grew even more smug. He leaned closer to the camera, exaggerating his mouth movements. "Guys, you seeing this? This is reality. No money. Even breathing is a mistake." Lily bathed in the attention like it was applause she'd been craving. She lifted her chin like a proud peacock and delivered her final verdict. "You don't deserve me. Getting a license with you was just a joke. Kevin and I are the real perfect match." I looked at them, looked at the face I had kissed countless times, now twisted with cruelty and disdain. 3 years of love, and it turned out to be nothing but a meticulously planned joke. I could even recall how last night she had looked at me with false anticipation, telling me she had a surprise for me, and I must bring my household register to the Civil Affairs Bureau today. So this was the surprise. A public humiliation show, with tens of thousands of netizens watching her grind my dignity into dust. I said nothing. Lava-like fury churned in my chest, threatening to burn me alive from within. I only looked deeply at Lily once, then turned around and walked toward the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Step by step, under their stunned gazes, their unrestrained laughter rang behind me. "He actually went in. Ha ha ha. What does he think he's doing? Marrying the heir? Don't bother with him. Let him embarrass himself in there. We'll keep streaming. Wait till he comes out crying." I didn't look back. Inside, the air conditioning was frigid, coolness seeping into my pores, but none of it could extinguish the fire in my chest. I didn't know what I intended to do. I just refused to let them see even a shred of humiliation from me. I drifted around the hall like a ghost until a cool, clear voice spoke beside me. "Sir, are you also here for a marriage registration?" I turned my head and saw a face that could make every flowery adjective in the world lose its meaning. The woman wore a perfectly tailored white suit dress. Her long hair was tied up, revealing a slender, porcelain white neck. Her features were so exquisite they looked sculpted by God himself. But her eyes held a distant coldness, keeping the world far away. She seemed to be waiting for someone, and that someone hadn't shown up. I nodded without thinking. She studied me for a few seconds, her gaze calm and unreadable. Then she said something I still find unbelievable to this day. "Your partner didn't show up. Mine didn't either. How about we go through with it together?" I froze. I thought I was hallucinating, but she didn't care about my shock. She calmly took a household register out of her Hermes purse and placed it on the seat beside her. "My name is Oriana Torres. I need a marriage. And you, it seems, need one too." There was no hint of joking in her tone, only professional, matter-of-fact decisiveness. I looked at her, then thought of the disgusting faces waiting outside. A surge of vague, indescribable impulse, mixed with the fury of betrayal and the reckless resolve of having nothing left to lose, rushed straight to my head in an instant. "Okay," I heard myself answer her in a hoarse, almost unrecognizable voice. What followed felt as fast and unreal as a dream. Taking photos, filling out forms, taking the oath. When the staff handed those 2 red booklets with gold lettering to us, I was still in a daze. So, we were married. Married to a stranger I had known for less than 10 minutes. Oriana seemed to see through my thoughts. She handed me one of the booklets and said in the same calm tone, "Mr. Law, it's a pleasure working with you." I held the warm booklet, feeling as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. When I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, the sunlight was still blinding, but my world had completely changed. Lily and Kevin were still waiting there, their mocking smiles still plastered on their faces, but when they saw the glaring red booklet in my hand, that smile instantly froze, shattered, and turned into pure shock. Kevin's phone camera shook violently. The bullet comments in the live stream instantly switched from rows of ha 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 to a dense explosion of question marks. What the hell? What's going on? What's that in his hand? A marriage certificate? No way. It's fake. Right. Photoshopped. Streamer. Zoom in. Hurry. Lily's face drained of color in an instant. She stared at the red booklet in my hand. Her voice so sharp it could slice the air. Marcel, you really got married? With who? Her voice was filled with disbelief, and a kind of panic she didn't even notice herself. I didn't answer her. I simply gave them a disdainful glance. The kind one gives to two clowns jumping up and down. Slowly, I opened the marriage certificate just enough for a corner to show. The faint red stamp and the blurred photo flickered under the sunlight. But I intentionally didn't let her see the other face clearly. I wanted her guessing. I wanted her losing her mind. Just then, a sleek, understated black sedan slid silently to a stop in front of me. I didn't recognize the logo, but it clearly screamed expensive. The window rolled down, revealing Oriana's stunningly cold and beautiful face. She didn't spare Lily or Kevin a single glance, as if they were no more than insignificant specks of air. Her eyes landed on me. Her voice was calm but carried an unmistakable authority. Mr. Law, it's time to go. She tilted her head slightly, signaling me to get in. Throughout the entire process, she completely ignored the two people frozen stiff beside us. Lily stared blankly at me walking step by step toward a luxury car she couldn't even name. The public humiliation show she had meticulously planned had slipped out of her control entirely, turning into a deafening slap across her own face. Kevin's live stream had already lost its mind. What the? This is the plot twist of the century. Who is that woman? She's gorgeous. The aura. This is what I call a real reversal smackdown. Look at the ex's face, it's green. Dude is a legend. Full marks for this move. Someone calculate the ex's psychological damage. I opened the car door and sat inside. The soft leather seat wrapped around me, and a faint, cool fragrance filled the air. The window rose again, sealing off all the noise outside, and those two twisted faces. Inside the car, everything was quiet. For the first time, I took a close, careful look at the woman beside me, my nominal, newlywed wife. She elegantly took out a black card from her handbag and handed it to me. There were no titles or extra contact details on it, just a name embossed in gold letters, Oriana Torres. And in that moment, my entire world was overturned by that name. Chapter 02. The car drove steadily away from the Civil Affairs Bureau, leaving the absurd farce far behind us. Through the rearview mirror, I could still see Lily and Kevin standing there like two rigid statues. The cool air inside the car gradually soothed the heat burning in my head from anger. This is the agreement for our marriage. Please have a look, Mr. Law. Oriana's voice broke the silence. She handed me a neatly bound document, her tone as businesslike as if she were discussing a multi-million-dollar deal, impersonal and completely devoid of emotion. I took the document. My fingertips brushed the slightly cool paper, and an unreal feeling rose within me. On the first page, in bold black letters, it read, Marriage Contract. I flipped through it page by page. The terms were detailed to an outrageous degree. The rights and obligations of both parties, the duration of the marriage, confidentiality agreements, the division of assets, even how we were supposed to act like a loving couple in public was written out clearly. This was a transaction in its purest form. I need a marriage. Oriana looked at the scenery racing past the window, her voice calm as she explained. To deal with my family's forced marriage arrangements and some unnecessary business alliances. The person I scheduled for today canceled on me at the last minute, and your appearance happened to be a perfect accident. You became the ideal shield for me. Shield. The word made me let out a bitter laugh. My life today was truly theatrical. I had just escaped from being publicly humiliated, only to instantly become a pawn in some wealthy family's power struggle. My emotions were tangled to the extreme. I understand it's sudden. Perhaps sensing my silence, Oriana turned her head. For the first time, those clear eyes met mine directly. This marriage is only a formality. We won't interfere in each other's private lives. In return, I will offer you a generous payment. She paused, then added, this amount is enough to resolve all your current troubles, and ensure that your future life will no longer be burdened by worries. Money. Before today, that word might have made me scoff. I had always believed that genuine feelings were more important than money, but reality had slapped me hard. I thought of Lily's disgusted expression, and the vicious mockery she threw at me during the live stream. A guy like him is destined to spend his life eating instant noodles in a rented room. A surge of resentment and anger flared up inside me again. Why should they get to define me? Why should I live under their ridicule? I lifted my head and looked at Oriana. Her eyes were clean, none of Lily's contempt, none of Kevin's scheming or malice, only the sincerity of cooperation. I saw what happened at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. She suddenly said, I know you were framed. Your integrity is the reason I chose you. I need a clean, Trustworthy partner, not someone eyeing my wealth. Her words flowed through me like a warm current, oddly soothing the wounds carved deep into my heart. So, she saw everything. She didn't mock me like those viewers in the live stream. Instead, she saw my integrity. I took a deep breath, pushing down all the chaotic emotions swirling within me. Accepting this deal wasn't just for the money, it was for revenge. To prove to Lily and Kevin, and to all those who looked down on me, that I, Marcel, am not some soft persimmon they can crush at will. More importantly, it was to live as myself. All right, I'll sign. I picked up the pen and solemnly wrote my name, Marcel Law, on the final page of the contract. The soft scratch of the pen gliding across the paper sounded unusually loud in the quiet car. At the moment my signature was completed, I felt an immense pressure settle onto my shoulders, as if an invisible mountain had descended upon me. But at the same time, there was a faint, secret excitement, one I couldn't even fully explain to myself. It felt as though my life was being forcibly pushed onto a completely different, unfamiliar track. When Oriana saw my signature, the cold and tense expression she'd maintained all along loosened for the first time. She revealed a tiny, almost imperceptible smile. Welcome aboard, Marcel Law. She extended her hand toward me. From now on, we are husband and wife. Her hand was cool to the touch, but the moment I held it, I felt a strange kind of strength flow into me. We are husband and wife. Those words exploded in my mind like a bolt of thunder. I, bound together with this mysterious, powerful heiress, because of a ridiculous accident. What the future would hold, I had no idea, but I knew one thing: from today on, everything would be different. Chapter 03. I thought that my contractual marriage with Oriana would be like two parallel lines. Aside from the necessary moments of acting, we would never intersect, but I soon realized I was wrong. The day after we registered our marriage, a storm erupted online, aimed squarely at me. Lily and Kevin were clearly unwilling to accept being publicly humiliated by me. They launched a furious counterattack. Explosive scandal. The humiliated guy turns out to be a scammer leeching off a rich woman to cling to a wealthy heiress. He abandoned his girlfriend of 3 years. How disgusting can a man be? Kevin changed the name of his live stream room and went live again, crying as he accused me of deceiving Lily's feelings, and claimed I had carefully schemed a performance at the Civil Affairs Bureau just to latch onto the mysterious rich woman. Lily, on her social media, posted an emotional essay. She portrayed herself as a heartbroken victim, subtly implying that I abandoned love for wealth, willing to sell out feelings for money. In an instant, public opinion flipped. Countless clueless netizens flooded my social accounts, leaving all kinds of vicious insults. Scumbag, get out of the design circle. You freeloader, hope you and your sugar mommy last forever. Poor Lily, 3 years of youth fed to a dog. I looked at those disgusting comments, shaking all over with anger. Black could be painted as white. Twisting truth had never been so easy. Just as I was about to post a rebuttal, my phone rang. It was Oriana's number. I've seen what's happening online. Her voice was calm as always. Don't act rashly. Leave it to my team. But, Marcel, she interrupted. Remember, we are husband and wife now. Any attack on you is a provocation against me. This is part of our contract. Protecting your reputation is protecting my own choice. Her words instantly calmed my restless heart. Before I even had time to digest the deeper meaning behind her statement, the counterattack online had already begun silently. First, a screenshot of a WeChat conversation between Lily and me, taken shortly before our breakup, was exposed by a major entertainment influencer with millions of followers. In the screenshots, Lily explicitly said she no longer had feelings for me and openly hinted at her ambiguous relationship with Kevin. The most fatal part was a conversation between her and Kevin. The content was precisely how they plotted the Civil Affairs Bureau humiliation setup, intending to make me lose face publicly and destroy my reputation. Lily, tomorrow we must make sure Marcel, that useless loser, gives up completely. Kevin, don't worry, babe, I've arranged everything. With tens of thousands in the live stream watching him embarrass himself, he'll never be able to show his face again. Once the evidence came out, the internet was in an uproar. Before netizens could even process this shocking reversal, more damaging revelations surfaced one after another. Kevin's chaotic private life, flirtatious chat logs with multiple women, screenshots of Lily badmouthing her own friends in her private group chat, being viciously judgmental and manipulative toward people around her. Right after that, a high-definition surveillance video from the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau was released. In the footage, Lily and Kevin's condescending mockery, my lonely figure turning away, and the distorted shock on their faces when I walked out holding the marriage certificate. Everything was recorded with absolute clarity. The truth was presented to the entire internet in the most irrefutable way possible. Those who had been furiously cursing me just hours earlier instantly turned their aim toward Lily and Kevin's social media. Holy shit. Biggest plot twist of the year. Turns out the real clowns were you too. So disgusting. Plotting to humiliate your ex and then pretending to be the victims. This shameless pair deserves each other. A scheming femme fatale wannabe and a pretentious playboy, may you both explode on the spot. Lily's carefully curated goddess persona collapsed overnight. Her account was flooded with waves of insults and mockery. Kevin's livestream channel was permanently banned by the platform, and it was rumored that several small projects his father invested in were hit with emergency withdrawals from business partners due to the scandal, causing the funding chain to snap instantly. At the center of the storm, a photo of our marriage certificate, with my wife's face deliberately blurred, quietly rose to the top of the trending search list. My face was perfectly clear in the picture, and although Oriana's features were pixelated, her unparalleled aura and the faintly visible luxurious background ignited countless rumors about a mysterious heiress. Marcel Law, an ordinary designer, became the talk of the entire internet overnight because of one absurd marriage. That night, I returned to the home Oriana had arranged for me, a luxurious villa on the hillside in the suburbs. Oriana was sitting on the sofa in the living room, a laptop on her lap, seemingly working. When she saw me come in, she closed the laptop and handed me a glass of warm water. The situation online is settled, she said lightly. I just used a bit of PR resource to let the truth surface. I looked at her, and a complicated emotion rose in my chest. So this is what it means to have wealth and power. With just a small gesture, she could make those who once caused me unbearable pain pay a devastating price. The feeling was a mix of satisfying revenge and a newfound sense of awe toward Oriana's capabilities. Thank you, I said sincerely. No need. She shook her head. It's protection for you, and part of our contract. She always brought up the contract, as if constantly reminding me that what lay between us was nothing but a transaction. Yet, in her cool, clear eyes, I could faintly see something that looked like concern. Maybe it was just my imagination. Public opinion is still growing. There will be many media outlets wanting interviews. She stood up, preparing to go upstairs. Be ready. From now on, our lives won't be peaceful. I watched her from behind as she ascended the stairs, slender, yet upright. I knew she was right. Our flash marriage was like a massive stone dropped into a lake, stirring up roaring waves. And I, the male lead at the center of this storm, had already been forced onto the stage. There was no stepping back anymore. Chapter 04. I officially moved into Oriana's villa. Everything here exceeded anything I had imagined in the past 20+ years of my life. Outside the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows was a neatly trimmed private garden, and inside was a minimalist yet luxurious modern interior. Every corner whispered the word expensive. A well-dressed middle-aged butler respectfully addressed me as Mr. Law, leading a row of servants who all greeted me politely. In that moment, I felt completely out of place, like a poor kid who had accidentally wandered into Versailles, unsure where to put my hands and feet. Oriana seemed to notice my discomfort. She dismissed the butler and servants, then personally led me around to get familiar with the environment. This is your room. It has an independent workspace and a walk-in closet, she said, pointing to a south-facing bedroom on the second floor. My room is at the end of the hallway. As per our agreement, we don't interfere with each other. Her arrangement was thoughtful yet distant, perfectly aligned with our marriage contract. Our cohabitation began in an awkward, delicate atmosphere. I still went to my tiny design firm every day, except my commute changed from squeezing into the subway to sitting in the back seat of Oriana's Bentley driven by her personal chauffeur. My colleagues looked at me with curious, even reverent eyes. Previously indifferent supervisors now took the initiative to strike up conversations with me. I knew all of this stemmed from my identity as the man married to a mysterious wealthy heiress. The feeling was strange, like wearing clothes that didn't fit, making every movement uncomfortable. At night when I returned to the villa, Oriana and I didn't interact much. Most of the time, we sat at the massive dining table, eating quietly. In the beginning, the atmosphere was painfully awkward. Aside from the sound of cutlery clinking, there was nothing else. Until one day, I noticed that she barely touched her steak, but instead seemed fond of the stir-fried asparagus. On impulse, I picked up the serving chopsticks and placed a piece of asparagus on her plate. Her hand paused for a split second. She looked up at me, her eyes carrying a hint of surprise. Then she gently nodded and whispered a soft, "Thank you," before eating the asparagus. That tiny gesture was like a stone thrown into a frozen lake, cracking the layer of ice. The tension at the dining table seemed to melt a little. I slowly began discovering another side of this cold CEO. She worked like a perpetual motion machine. Several times when I woke up in the middle of the night for water, I saw the light under her study door still on. But she had a softer side too. One weekend afternoon, I saw her sitting alone on the swing in the garden. The sunlight spilling over her made her seem less sharp and more gentle. She wasn't looking at her phone or any documents. She was just quietly gazing into the distance, her eyes tinged with a hint of melancholy I couldn't decipher. I didn't disturb her. I simply brewed a cup of hot tea, placed it on the stone table beside her, and quietly walked away. When I glanced back, She had picked up the tea and taken a small sip. In that moment, I seemed to catch a faint warmth in her eyes. Our conversations also started extending from the dining table to our work. One of my design proposals hit a bottleneck, and I was stuck on a detail I couldn't figure out. During dinner that night, I casually mentioned it. To my surprise, after hearing the problem, Oriana actually offered me an entirely new perspective from a business operations standpoint. Your design has a natural charm, she said, but when it comes to user experience and commercial conversion, you can be bolder. For example, this entrance, if you connect it with our online mall and make an interactive link. Her words hit the mark with surgical precision, and suddenly everything clicked for me. It was the first time I realized she wasn't just a powerful woman leading a massive business empire, she was someone with extraordinary commercial insight and a visionary mind. My respect for her grew naturally. Our relationship quietly shifted amid all these small daily details, from initial awkwardness and restraint, to a subtle sense of familiarity and understanding. One night, my phone suddenly rang. It was a strange number. When I picked it up, Lily's sharp voice came through. Marcel, you're really enjoying yourself now. Huh? Got yourself a rich woman and suddenly forgot who you were. I'm telling you, don't think this is over. Her voice was full of jealousy and bitterness, as if she wanted to use our past to threaten me. I didn't even bother replying. I simply hung up, cold and indifferent. As I lowered my phone, Oriana was coming down the stairs. She seemed to have heard something, and her gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds. She didn't ask anything, but the next day, I noticed the villa's security system had been upgraded yet again. Outwardly, we still played the role of a loving couple. Occasionally, when paparazzi were tailing us, Oriana would naturally wrap her hand around my arm, a perfectly measured smile on her face. At several unavoidable family gatherings, she handled the elders' probing questions about my identity with effortless grace, shielding me completely. My heart swung back and forth between awkward performance and genuine emotion. I could no longer distinguish which moments were acting and which were real, until one day, when I accompanied her to an internal celebration banquet for the group. At the banquet, she was like a queen, effortlessly gliding between business tycoons, conversing with poise, radiant and composed. But after the event, in the car on the way home, I saw her leaning back in the seat, rubbing her brow in exhaustion. At that moment, all her aura and armor faded away. She was no longer the dazzling CEO, just a woman who could get tired, who could feel worn out. And for the first time, a powerful urge rose in my chest. I wanted to protect her, not because of the contract, not because of what she could offer me, but from the bottom of my heart, I wanted to shield her from some of life's storms, to give her even just a moment of ease and peace. The thought startled me the moment it appeared, because I realized I might have developed feelings I shouldn't have. For my contract wife, Chapter 05, the peaceful rhythm of our cohabitation was quickly disrupted by an even more turbulent undercurrent. One weekend afternoon, Oriana's uncle, Fabian Torres, arrived uninvited. Fabian was in his early 50s, dressed in a meticulously tailored suit. His gaze was sharp and calculating, carrying an unmistakable mixture of scrutiny and arrogance whenever he looked at someone. So this is Mr. Law, isn't it? I've heard quite a lot. He gave me a handshake with a fake smile, the kind that carried the subtle force of a power play. Oriana's taste grows harder and harder to understand. There are so many eligible young men from matching families, yet she chose, well, you, a designer. The contempt in his voice was practically dripping. I felt my dignity being stepped on in the most understated and merciless way. You're joking, uncle. Oriana's voice sounded at the perfect moment. She walked down the stairs and naturally wrapped her arm around mine. Marcel is the husband I chose myself. I know his talent and character better than anyone. We are very much in love. She pushed me to the front, forcing me to face the pressure of the powerful family head-on. It was the first time I genuinely understood how much harder it was to be the son-in-law of a wealthy family than I had ever imagined. I forced out a stiff smile, trying to imitate Oriana's grace as I dealt with this old fox. Uncle Torres flatters me. Marrying Oriana is the greatest fortune of my life. Fabian stared at me deeply, as if trying to dissect me from the inside out. He clearly didn't believe our love story. In every remark, he tried to probe for cracks in our relationship, looking for flaws in our marriage. After we sent Fabian off, the atmosphere in the villa grew heavy. The composure on Oriana's face faded, replaced by a deep exhaustion. She confessed the real crisis to me. It turned out the Torres group was far from a united front. A faction led by Fabian Torres had been eyeing the inheritance rights her father left her for years. Recently, they had been pushing hard to arrange a marriage alliance between Oriana and another wealthy family. A strategy meant to dilute her shares through the union, eventually stripping her of power and taking control of the group. And my appearance completely disrupted their plans. So they won't let this go, Oriana said, looking at me with unprecedented seriousness. From now on, we must play the role of a couple madly, inseparably in love. You must be a devoted, wife-obsessed husband, so in love with me you'd give up everything. Only then will they find no weakness to exploit. I had been pulled into an even deeper whirlpool, a family war involving power and wealth, and because of it, my life came under strict surveillance. I could feel it, no matter where I went. It seemed like a pair of eyes was always watching me from the shadows. Fabian's people, like ghosts, tried to dig up evidence of our contract marriage. Under that overwhelming pressure, Oriana and I, the fake couple, were instead forced into becoming increasingly close. I began to learn more about her. I learned that although she appeared strong on the outside, she needed sleeping pills every night just to fall asleep. I learned that she despised the cold calculations and transactional relationships within her family. I learned that the reason she chose me, an outsider, was precisely because of something those wealthy heirs lacked, a kind of genuine cleanliness. At a formal family banquet one night, Oriana's aunt, a wealthy lady dripping in jewels, publicly questioned my background in front of all the relatives. Oriana, your aunt has to tell you, marriage isn't a game. Choosing someone from such an ordinary background, what help can he be to the Torres family business? Don't tell me you've been fooled. In an instant, every pair of eyes focused on me. In that moment, I felt like an item placed on display, judged, evaluated, dissected. Anger burned in my chest, but I forced myself to hold it down. I remembered the lines Oriana had taught me beforehand. With a gentle and humble smile, maintaining dignity, I replied, "Aunt, you're right. My background is indeed ordinary. I can't offer Oriana direct help in business, but precisely because I have nothing, what I can give her is the purest. I can give her all my love, a warm home, and a harbor she can return to after fighting her battles outside, somewhere she can rest at ease. I believe these things might be more important than any business alliance." My words left everyone stunned. The sharp-tongued aunt turned pale, then flushed. Unable to say a single word for a long moment, Oriana tightened her grip on my arm slightly, and on her face appeared a rare, genuine smile of approval. After the banquet, in the car on the way home, she thanked me for the first time. "Thank you for today." Then she did something I never expected. She took the initiative to hold my hand. Her hand was still cool, but this time, beneath that coldness, I could clearly feel a sense of real trust and dependence. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. Fabian's goal isn't just to force me into a marriage alliance, she said quietly, looking out the window. What he truly wants is the entire Torres group. He's driven away everyone who could help me, and now, he sees you as the biggest and the last obstacle by my side. I tightened my hold on her hand, feeling a heavy responsibility settling on my shoulders. I realized this marriage that began as an accident was far more dangerous than I had imagined, and far more capable of pulling me deeply into its center. I was no longer just a pawn, no longer just a shield. I had become her only ally in this wealthy family war. I looked at her tired profile and told myself silently, "Marcel, you can't back down. You must protect yourself, and this woman who pulled you out of the mud, yet also dragged you into an even greater storm, because now, you are husband and wife, even if only in name." Chapter 06. Just as I was giving my all, preparing to face the internal storms of Oriana's family with her, Lily and Kevin, those two clowns I'd long tossed out of my life, jumped out again. Unwilling to accept their downfall, they resurfaced after a period of silence with even more vicious revenge. This time, they got smarter. They hired large numbers of paid trolls to anonymously spread even nastier rumors across major forums and social platforms. Digging into the life of Marcel, the gold digger who married into wealth, suspected domestic abuser. Ex-girlfriend reveals, Marcel assaulted her multiple times and faked a marriage to manipulate a rich woman's sympathy. The so-called mysterious heiress is just a pitiful outcast abandoned by her family, using a puppet husband to keep up appearances. Kevin even opened an anonymous overseas livestream account, broadcasting daily, the entire content dedicated to smearing and degrading Oriana and me with obscene lies. He shifted the attack toward Oriana Torres, relentlessly questioning her business competence, hinting that the Torres group was collapsing under her leadership, even fabricating filthy rumors about her having special fetishes. These statements were like maggots crawling out of a sewer, too filthy to stand in the light, yet disgusting enough to make anyone sick. I was so furious I wanted to find Kevin immediately and tear his mouth apart, but Oriana was far calmer than I was. She looked at all those vile comments without the slightest change of expression, merely instructing her PR team, collect every piece of evidence. Also, find out the server location and the financial backers behind that anonymous streaming platform. Then she turned to me, the corner of her lips lifting into a cold, sharp smile. "They like performing. Then let's give them a performance big enough to drown them." A few days later, a highly anticipated charity gala became the stage for our counterattack. That night, Oriana purposely wore a dress I designed for her, a moon-white gown, minimalistic yet ingeniously crafted, perfectly highlighting her cool and noble aura. When she walked onto the red carpet with her arm linked through mine, every single camera instantly turned toward us. President Torres, is the gentleman beside you the rumored Mr. Law? President Torres, may we ask which haute couture brand designed your gown tonight? It's stunning. Oriana stopped, turning toward the sea of flashing cameras with a composed smile. The person beside me is my husband, Marcel. She paused, glanced at me, her eyes filled with affection and pride. As for this dress, it isn't from any couture brand. It was designed by my husband. He's an exceptionally talented designer. Her words spread across the entire internet through the live stream. For the first time, my identity and talent as a designer received public recognition, and at the highest level. In that moment, standing beside her, I felt power surge through me. Halfway through the gala, Lily and Kevin, just as we had predicted, showed up unexpectedly. Somehow they sneaked in through connections, and like two rabid dogs, they rushed toward us, trying to create chaos. Marcel, you ungrateful traitor. Lily screamed hysterically, pointing at me with a shaking hand. You were the luxury brands she bought you and dare forget the days you lived off me. Kevin, meanwhile, fanned the flames. Everyone look, this man deceived President Torres. He's a complete and utter con artist. The venue erupted in murmurs. Guests and media stared at the four of us, eyes filled with curiosity and anticipation of a scandal. But facing their accusations, I wasn't shaken at all. Oriana didn't even bother lifting her eyelids. She gracefully sipped her red wine. I looked at the two deranged figures in front of me, then reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I pressed the play button. A clear audio recording, connected to the venue's sound system via Bluetooth, echoed throughout the entire banquet hall. It was Lily and Kevin's conversation, the complete, unreleased recording of them plotting how to humiliate me. Kevin, babe, you really planning to dump that broke loser Marcel for good? Lily, what else? Staying with him. When will I ever get to carry a Hermes bag? And the Porsche you promised me, when will you get it for me? Kevin, ha ha ha. As long as you play your part well tomorrow and make Marcel lose face in front of the whole internet. Forget the Porsche, I'll buy you whatever you want. Lily, deal. I've had enough of his fake integrity. A pathetic nobody designer, he really thinks he's someone. And the recording continued, with something even more chilling. Kevin, by the way, did you get his competition design draft? Lily, got it. It was in his computer. I've already sent it to you. Are you sure you can tweak it and submit it as your work? Kevin, relax. I'll have someone modify a few details. No one will notice. A nobody with no background like him, even if he finds out. What can he do? When the recording ended, the entire banquet hall fell into a grave silence. Everyone stared at Lily and Kevin, now pale as chalk, with disgust and shock. The evidence was damning, undeniable. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. It involved commercial plagiarism and fraud. Security. Oriana finally set down her wine glass, her voice icy and emotionless. Two tall security guards stepped forward, each grabbing one of the now collapsing Lily and Kevin. I'm not leaving. Marcel, you can't do this to me. Lily screamed, still making a futile last struggle. I looked at her, with no anger left, only cold indifference. As they were dragged out, Oriana rose and stepped toward the media. She picked up the microphone and spoke clearly into every camera. I, Oriana, president of the Torres Group, hereby make a formal statement. Any defamation or attack directed at my husband, Mr. Marcel Law, or toward the Torres Group, we reserve the right to pursue full legal action. As for the two individuals just escorted out, I trust the law will deliver a fair judgment. Her voice was powerful, unyielding, authoritative. The next day, the news exploded across every platform. Rich Air Steel's designers worked to win award, officially under criminal investigation. Scheming woman and her lover plot to frame ex-boyfriend. End up humiliating themselves, public persona destroyed. Kevin and his father's company saw their stock price plummet overnight, on the brink of bankruptcy due to the scandal. Lily, too, was summoned by police for involvement in fraud. They used every trick they could to drag me into the abyss, and in the end, dug their own graves. This online storm that started because of me ended in the most complete, brutal way. And standing behind Oriana, for the first time, I finally understood what real power felt like. Chapter 07. After weathering the storm against our enemies together, the invisible barrier between Oriana and me seemed to quietly melt. We were no longer just contract partners living under the same roof. There was now a sense of camaraderie, of having faced danger side by side. The villa no longer felt like a cold, luxurious museum. It began to feel lived in. I remembered she disliked onions, ginger, and garlic and would remind the chef in the kitchen. She remembered I liked hand-brewed coffee and had top-grade beans airshipped from Colombia for me. One late night, after finishing a design draft, I walked out of my study and found her still in the living room, reading through a thick stack of financial reports. I walked over and sat beside her without speaking. For once, She didn't talk about work. Instead, she opened up about her childhood. She said she never really had friends growing up. Her only playmates were business case studies and the Torres family corporate lineage. She said her father had been extremely strict, teaching her from the very beginning never to trust anyone, especially those who smiled at her. She said she envied me, envied the warm, ordinary family I had, and the genuine friends who cared for me. That night, she talked for a long, long time. I listened quietly, and for the first time, I saw the desolate, lonely land hidden beneath the cold armor of this aloof CEO. Underneath her hard, distant exterior, she carried a soft heart that longed to be understood, to be warmed. After that night, I began taking small, deliberate steps into her world. Every morning, I woke up half an hour before she did and prepared a simple breakfast for her myself. Maybe just a fried egg and a cup of warm milk, but she always finished every bite. She was still not good with words, but when I worked overtime late into the night, she would bring me a warm cup of coffee or a plate of sliced fruit without saying a thing. Our interactions developed an unspoken understanding. One evening during a department gathering, my colleagues pressured me into drinking a lot. Drunk and unrestrained, I rambled endlessly to Oriana over the phone, who was coming to pick me up. I told her I was grateful that she gave me dignity at my lowest point. I told her I admired her decisiveness in business, and at the same time felt heartache for the strength she forced herself to show alone. I said, Oriana, you actually look really beautiful when you smile. You should smile more. There was a long silence on the other end, so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her voice, very soft, with a hint of embarrassment she couldn't hide. Got it, drunkard. Stay where you are. Don't wander off. After that day, I began paying subconscious attention to the things she liked. I knew she enjoyed classical music, so I hunted down rare vinyl records. I knew she loved a niche perfume brand, so I asked friends abroad to buy it. Whenever I gave her something, she'd put on her cool, "You're too much trouble" expression. But as soon as she turned away, she'd place the gift carefully in the most visible spot in her study. Our relationship grew like a seed quietly sprouting in spring, slowly, gently breaking through the soil. But family pressure still loomed over us. Oriana's elders began complaining again about my identity as a live-in son-in-law, demanding that Oriana clarify the relationship between me and the Torres group, insisting she shouldn't let an outsider interfere too much in company affairs. At a board meeting, Fabian launched another attack, mocking me in front of all the directors, calling me a kept man living off a woman. Before I could respond, Oriana stood up. Her gaze swept across the room like a blade. I'll repeat this once more. Marcel is my husband, my legally recognized partner. He is not an outsider. His talent and capability are evident to all of you. In the future, not only will he participate in the company's affairs, he may very well become the future hope of the Torres family. Her words silenced the entire conference room. In front of everyone, she gave me the firmest, most unshakable defense. In that moment, as I stared at her resolute silhouette, my heart pounded uncontrollably. At an important business banquet, Oriana, exhausted from days of overwork and with some alcohol in her system, suddenly had a flare-up of her chronic stomach condition. She tried to hold herself together, but her face had gone pale, and tiny beads of cold sweat formed along her forehead. I was the first to notice her discomfort. Without hesitation, I supported her through the crowd and brought her into the lounge. I helped her lie down, fetched warm water and stomach medicine, and used my clumsy hands to gently press against her abdomen. She leaned back on the sofa, eyes closed, her long lashes casting faint shadows under the warm lights. She seemed to have completely let down her guard with me, her posture soft, dependent, fragile, half asleep, half awake. I heard her whisper my name in a barely audible voice, Marcel. Her tone carried a dreamy murmur, and a deep sense of reliance. My heart was struck hard in that instant, as if a burning stone had dropped into a still lake, sending ripples exploding in all directions. The bedrooms in our villa were well soundproofed, but one night, I woke abruptly with a strange sense of unease. As I walked past her room, I heard something, a faint, suppressed sound of quiet sobbing. It was soft, very soft, like the whimper of a kitten, broken and weak, filled with helplessness. My heart clenched painfully. For the first time, I felt a deep ache for her. I stood outside her door for a long time, hesitating, but in the end, I didn't knock. I was afraid my presence would shatter the last bit of armor she was trying so hard to keep up, so I simply stood there, silently guarding her, until those sounds slowly faded away. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Lying in bed, my mind replayed her cold, composed face, and the fragile sobs behind her door, and I finally had to admit the truth. My feelings for Oriana had already gone far beyond the bounds of our cold contract. I no longer wanted to be just her partner. I had become greedy, longing for this marriage that began as a transaction, to become something real, something that belonged to me and her. Love. Chapter 08. Just when I was immersed in the slowly growing affection between Oriana and me, thinking that maybe, just maybe, our fake marriage could gradually become real, a deadly crisis was quietly brewing in the dark. Fabian, the man who had always regarded me as a thorn in his eyes, finally revealed his most vicious fangs. Seeing my relationship with Oriana deepen day by day, and watching me gain a foothold in the Torres group through my design capabilities, earning the support of several board members, he felt a threat he had never felt before. So he began plotting something far more malicious, far more direct. I found out about it by accident. Using my connections, I asked a friend, an expert in cybersecurity, to monitor some suspicious online activity related to Fabian. What my friend discovered on an encrypted dark web forum was nothing short of shocking. Fabian had contacted a notorious international arms smuggling organization through the dark web. The transaction included not only illegal goods, but a chilling task: eliminate the primary obstacle beside the current president of the Torres group. That obstacle was me. He didn't just want power, he wanted my life. When I saw those chat logs, my blood ran cold. I immediately told Oriana. After hearing it, the always composed expression on her face shattered, revealing shock and disbelief for the first time. "He's insane, he's completely insane," she whispered, her body trembling uncontrollably. She never imagined that her own uncle would become so deranged, so monstrously consumed by greed. After a brief moment of shock came a roaring fury and heartbreaking disillusionment. "We must report this to the board and to grandfather, immediately." Oriana made the decision at once. "We can't give him another chance." We decided to leave right away for the Torres family's ancestral residence, to expose Fabian's crimes directly to the Torres family patriarch, the stabilizing force of the entire Torres group. But we still underestimated Fabian's madness. On our way there, while driving along a remote mountain road, the crisis struck. A black SUV suddenly rammed into us from the side rear with tremendous force. A deafening crash shook our vehicle. The driver fought desperately to keep control, but the SUV slammed into our rear again, and again, like a rabid beast. Then, another SUV of the same model approached from the opposite direction, blocking the road entirely. 7 or 8 masked men jumped out of the vehicles, all dressed in black, and in their hands were unmistakable, gleaming guns. "Protect President Torres," our driver and the bodyguard in the front shouted, pulling out their weapons as they engaged in a fierce gunfight. Gunshots erupted, echoing through the quiet valley like thunder. The windows shattered instantly under the hail of bullets, glass fragments flying everywhere. "Go, get out." My mind was blank except for one thought. I can't let Oriana get hurt. I shielded her with my body, yanked the car door open, and pulled her out with me. We tumbled onto the ground and hid behind the roadside guardrail. Bullets screamed past above our heads. I could hear, with terrifying clarity, the dull thuds of bullets piercing the car, and the painful groans of our bodyguards as they fell. My heart leaped into my throat. "Marcel, how are you?" Oriana's voice rang beside my ear, carrying a panic and tremor I had never heard from her before. "I'm fine." I pressed her tightly beneath me, feeling my heart pounding so violently it was about to burst out of my chest. Just then, a killer spotted our location. He raised his gun, the dark muzzle aiming directly at me. My pupils shrank sharply. Just when I thought I was done for, Oriana suddenly shoved me hard. "Watch out." She used her own body to shield me. Bang. A gunshot. I watched with my eyes wide open as a bright splash of blood quickly spread across the sleeve of her white suit jacket. "Oriana." I let out a hoarse, anguished scream, feeling my entire world collapse in that instant. An unprecedented fear and rage erupted inside me like a volcano. I couldn't let anything happen to her. I absolutely couldn't let anything happen to her. I didn't know where the strength came from. I suddenly leaped up from the ground, grabbed a half-human-sized rock by the roadside, and hurled it with all my might toward the gunman who had fired. The killer fell instantly, like a wild beast gone mad. I charged forward and engaged the remaining assassins in the most primitive fight for survival. I rammed my head. I used every possible method I could, fighting back with everything I had. Amid the chaos, Oriana endured the pain, pulled her phone out of her pocket with trembling hands, and dialed a number. "Grandpa, we were ambushed on the mountain road. Please come save us." Her voice trembled from blood loss and agony, yet that decisiveness and composure still remained. Luckily, the Torres family's reinforcements arrived faster than I had imagined. A dozen black cars roared in from both ends of the mountain road, surrounding the assassins completely. We were saved. I rushed to Oriana's side, staring at the blood pouring from her arm, my heart aching so much I could barely breathe. I tore off my own shirt and wrapped it tightly around her wound. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I'm right here." I held her, comforting her incoherently, only to realize I was shaking even harder than she was. She leaned against my chest, her face pale as paper, yet still managed to pull out a faint smile for me. "Marcel, you were so brave just now." After saying that, she completely passed out. The ambulance sirens grew closer and closer. Both Oriana and I were rushed to the hospital. This sudden brush with death shoved Fabian's conspiracy completely into the light, and it also tore apart the last thin veil between me and Oriana, the one called contract, shredded amid blood and smoke. Our relationship, in that moment, underwent its most tragic and intense transformation. Chapter 09. In the VIP ward of the hospital, the smell of disinfectant hung in the air. Oriana lay on the hospital bed with thick bandages wrapped around her arm. Due to excessive blood loss, her face looked especially pale and fragile. I stayed by her bedside, never leaving for even a moment. For the past few days, I had barely slept. My mind replayed again and again the terrifying scene on the mountain road, and that moment when she blocked the bullet for me. Fear and heartache wove together like two massive nets, trapping me completely. Old Master Torres had visited once, a spirited elderly man whose sharp gaze was as penetrating as an eagle's. He looked at me for a long time without speaking. In the end, he simply patted my shoulder heavily. Good child, Oriana did not misjudge you. Fabian had already been restrained by the Torres family's bodyguards. With my friend's help, the evidence of his collusion with an international criminal organization and the hiring of assassins had been fully submitted to the police. Awaiting him would be the harshest punishment the law could deliver. But none of that mattered to me. All I cared about was when the woman lying in bed would finally wake up. At last, on the afternoon of the third day, her eyelashes trembled lightly, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Water, she whispered, her voice hoarse. I immediately picked up the glass of water, dipped a cotton swab into it, and gently moistened her cracked lips. She looked at me, at my bloodshot eyes and the stubble darkening my jaw, and a hint of distress flickered in her gaze. You haven't slept for days, have you? I'm fine. I held her uninjured hand, my voice thick with emotion. How do you feel? Does the wound still hurt? She shook her head, then turned her hand over and tightly clasped mine. Marcel, I thought I'd never see you again. Her words were like a key, instantly unlocking the floodgate of my emotions. I couldn't hold back anymore. I leaned down, buried my head against the crook of her neck, and silent tears slipped down my face. I loved her. The thought became crystal clear, undeniably certain. At that moment, I raised my head, looked into her eyes, and spoke each word solemnly. Oriana, I love you. Not because of the contract, not out of gratitude, just love. From the moment I saw you spacing out alone in the garden, from when you took that bullet for me, no, maybe even earlier. I love you. I want us to be real husband and wife, the kind who stay together for a lifetime. Her eyes instantly turned red. Crystal tears slipped down from the corners of her eyes and fell onto the white pillow. She didn't speak. She simply reached out her hand and gently caressed my cheek. Then she leaned in and, using every ounce of her strength, pressed a kiss onto my lips, a kiss carrying the salty taste of her tears. I feel the same. Her eyes were red as she looked at me, her voice trembling with the lingering fear of a narrow escape and overflowing, unmistakable affection. I love you too, Marcel. At that moment, all words became unnecessary. Our contractual marriage, after surviving the test of life and death, finally transformed into real love. During Oriana's recovery, our relationship grew rapidly warmer. We no longer had any barriers or pretenses. Like all couples deeply in love, we shared everything with each other. I told her embarrassing stories from my childhood. She told me about her fearless days dominating Wall Street. We planned the future of the Torres Group together and also looked forward to the future of just the two of us. After she was discharged from the hospital, we joined forces to launch a full-scale purge of Fabian Torres's power network. I used my design talent, combined with the technological resources of the Torres Group, to lead the development of an entirely new smart security system with completely independent intellectual property rights. This system not only protected our personal safety, but also created an unbreakable firewall for the Torres Group's core data. The project made my name rise quickly within the group and earned me genuine respect and influence. With my support, Oriana laid out a series of clever strategies that struck at the root. She took advantage of the power vacuum caused by Fabian's arrest, swiftly removing all of his loyal subordinates planted inside the group, and promoted a group of capable and driven young talents. In an emergency board meeting that decided the future direction of the group, Oriana stood her ground against all objections, and officially appointed me as the CEO of the newly established Innovation Strategy Department of the Torres Group, giving me real authority. As a victim, I provided the police with all the evidence regarding Fabian's hired assassins, and hired the country's top legal team to ensure he received the punishment he deserved. It was said that Fabian had a stroke on the spot when he heard all this in prison, becoming a completely ruined man. After a brief period of turbulence, the Torres Group's stock price, thanks to our series of reforms and the success of new products, did not fall but soared instead. It surged all the way upward, reaching a historic market capitalization high. Oriana and I, A pair of flash marriage spouses, who began our story at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, became the most legendary duo in the entire business world. Within the family, no one dared to question our marriage ever again. With our strength and our love, we earned the recognition of everyone. The shadow that once hung over our heads finally dispersed completely. Our future was bright. Chapter 10. Just when Oriana and I had finally put both our careers and our love life on the right track, ready to embrace a new chapter of our lives, two unexpected people appeared before me again. It was Lily and Kevin. Because of their previous scandals and illegal actions, the court had sentenced them to pay an enormous amount in civil compensation. Kevin's company went bankrupt and was liquidated, and Lily was labeled a tainted celebrity, banned by all platforms. Their lives had fallen from the clouds straight into the mud. That afternoon, I had just walked out of the company when they blocked me in the parking lot. After months of not seeing them, they no longer had a trace of their former glamour. Kevin's hair was greasy, his expression haggard, his eyes filled with resentment and unwillingness. Lily was even worse, so thin she was almost unrecognizable, dressed in cheap clothes, her face showing undeniable misery and despair. Marcel. Kevin spoke first, his voice hoarse. Are you satisfied now? After ruining me like this, do you sleep well every night? I looked at him and felt only ridicule. You brought this upon yourself, I replied coldly. Marcel. Lily lunged forward, trying to grab my arm, but was stopped by the bodyguard behind me. Her tears poured down instantly as she switched to her emotional performance. Marcel, I know I was wrong, I really do. For the sake of our 3 years together, can't you help me? I can't even afford rent now. She even took out an old photo of us from her bag. In the picture, we were smiling so brightly. Look at this. Have you forgotten how happy we used to be? How can you be so heartless? Yes, I wronged you, but you can't just let me die. Tearful and pitiful, she tried to portray herself as someone full of regret, attempting to morally manipulate me. A few months ago, seeing her like this, I might have softened a little, but now, all I felt inside was cold calmness. Seeing her act fail, Kevin began his own performance, except he chose threats. Marcel, don't be so shameless. You think you're somebody just because you married into the Torres family? I'm telling you, I still have dirt on you. If you don't give us some money, I'll expose everything and ruin your reputation, yours and that Torres woman's. Watching one play the good cop and the other the bad cop, I only felt overwhelming disgust. At that moment, a familiar black Bentley slowly pulled up beside us. The window rolled down, revealing Oriana's cool, composed face. She glanced at the hysterical Lily and Kevin, not with anger, but with the indifferent look one gives to trash. She said something into her phone, and soon, the head of my legal team hurried over with several staff members. Mr. Law, President Torres. The lawyer nodded to us, then turned toward Lily and Kevin, wearing a polite professional smile. Good afternoon. Regarding the verbal threats and attempted extortion you just made against my clients, we have recorded everything, audio and video. Now, you have two choices. First, leave immediately, and perhaps we can pretend nothing happened. Second, we call the police right away and file a new lawsuit against you for attempted extortion. Lily and Kevin's faces turned even paler than paper. They had never expected our counterattack to come so quickly, and so professionally. Marcel, you, Lily pointed at me, trembling with anger, unable to form a complete sentence. At last, I looked at them directly, my gaze carrying a coldness and finality I had never shown before. Everything between us ended the moment we stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau that day. What you've done has long crossed every bottom line. I will never give you another chance to cling to me or hurt the person I love. The path you chose was your own. The consequences that follow, please savor them slowly. After speaking, I didn't spare them another glance. I opened the car door and sat beside Oriana. Lily and Kevin still refused to give up and began shouting outside the car, only to be firmly and mercilessly escorted away by my bodyguards and legal team. It was said that later, unwilling to accept defeat, they tried to stir up trouble in the media, but the lawyers submitted new evidence of attempted extortion, dragging them back into court with additional charges. Inside the car, Oriana held my hand and comforted me softly. Don't waste your emotions on people who aren't worth it. They're like flies, just swat them away. I nodded, watching the retreating scenery outside the window, feeling utterly calm. All the love and hatred of the past dissolved into fleeting mist in that moment. When I saw Lily and Kevin's miserable figures being taken away by the security guards, I felt no satisfaction at all, only complete indifference. They no longer deserved to occupy even the smallest corner of my world. Chapter 11. Fabian's case soon went to trial. Hiring assassins, colluding with foreign criminal organizations, corporate espionage, multiple charges combined. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and would spend the rest of his days behind bars. The interest network he had painstakingly built inside the Torres Group, rooted deep and tangled over the years, was completely dismantled by Oriana and me working together. The Torres Group ushered in a complete and total reshuffling. Relying on my outstanding performance in the Intelligent Security System project and the massive success of several revolutionary products I later led the development of, I established undeniable authority within the company. My identity was no longer the husband of President Torres, but President Law. During a full board meeting, Oriana Torres officially promoted me to Chief Executive President of the Torres Group. Sharing leadership over this vast business empire with her, I began implementing bold reforms, integrating my modern, cutting-edge design concepts with the Torres Group's strong capital and technological foundations. We cleaned out the bloated and corrupt mess Fabian left behind, shut down projects with no future, and redirected resources toward emerging fields such as artificial intelligence and biotechnology. Under Oriana's and my joint helm, the massive commercial vessel that was the Torres Group not only sailed steadily through the crisis, but turned around and headed toward a broader, more promising blue ocean. Within a year of our takeover, the group's market value tripled, reaching an unprecedented new high. Oriana and I, a couple who began with a contract, became the legendary power couple admired throughout the business world. Our story was covered by countless media outlets and became a model of achieving both love and career success for young people. Fabian saw all of this from prison through the news. It was said that he suffered another stroke from sheer rage, becoming completely paralyzed and unable to speak clearly. The power and wealth he had chased all his life ultimately became nothing more than footnotes, ones that highlighted and glorified the legendary story of me and Oriana. As for the elders of the Torres family, their attitude toward our marriage changed from initial doubt and opposition to full support and pride. In their eyes, I, once a poor nobody, had proven with my own strength that I was worthy of Oriana, and worthy of the Torres family. We had truly taken hold of the future of the Torres Group. The absurd story that began with a so-called humiliation trap now seemed to have reached a perfect ending. But for Oriana and me, our real happiness was only just beginning. Chapter 12. On a sunny afternoon, Oriana and I stood on the open-air balcony of our seaside villa, gazing at the distant, deep blue ocean. The sea breeze lifted her smooth, flowing hair, and with it, stirred the endless tenderness in my heart. I gently wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin in the hollow of her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. She leaned into my embrace, a serene smile tugging gently at the corners of her mouth. She turned around and looked at me. The eyes that had once been cold as ice were now filled with starlight and overflowing warmth. She didn't speak. Instead, she took my hand and softly placed it on her flat, lower abdomen. I froze. The next second, a wave of overwhelming, indescribable joy completely engulfed me. You, I stammered, unable to form a proper sentence from sheer excitement. She nodded with a smile, her eyes turning slightly misty. "Marcel, you're going to be a father." A mix of surprise and joy exploded inside me. I lifted her up in my arms and twirled her around the balcony, unable to contain my happiness. Sunlight poured over us, warm and bright. We decided to hold a grand wedding, not to show anyone, but to make up for the hasty, absurd beginning that took place at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. We wanted to invite all our friends and family who truly blessed us, to witness our happiness. On the wedding day, I wore a crisp, well-tailored suit, watching Oriana walk toward me slowly, step by step, in her white wedding gown. She was breathtaking, like an angel who didn't belong to the mortal world, leaving me utterly spellbound. When we exchanged rings, I looked into her eyes and said with deep affection, "Thank you, Oriana. Thank you for being a beam of light that shone into my world on the darkest day of my life. And thank that ridiculous humiliation trap, too. If not for it, I might never have met you, my true love, and the most magnificent gift of my destiny." She was crying as well, but smiled at me. "I feel the same, Marcel. Thank you for making me believe that in this world, there really is pure love, love without any interests attached." Our child was born in the winter, a very adorable little boy, with eyes like mine, and Oriana's nose and mouth. We took on the responsibilities of parenthood together, enjoying the warmth and happiness of our little family. In my career, I continued to break new ground, leading the Torres Group further and further along the path of technological innovation. Oriana devoted more of her energy to our family and to charity. She expanded the Torres Group onto a broader, more international stage. At the same time, under both our names, we established a charitable foundation dedicated to helping young people, those who, like me, came from ordinary backgrounds, struggled through adversity, yet still held on to their dreams. Lily and Kevin had long since disappeared into the vast crowd. I heard that after being released, burdened by enormous debt, they lived in utter misery. Once, I saw a cover of a financial magazine featuring a photo of Oriana and me holding our child. The headline read, "From Contract to Legend, Marcel and Oriana's Business Empire and Love Myth." I wondered whether, upon seeing that report, they felt even the slightest trace of regret, but that no longer mattered. Their world and our happiness had already become two parallel lines that would never intersect again. As the sun set in the west, I held Oriana's hand and watched our child toddling across the lawn, laughing gleefully. My heart filled with an unprecedented sense of gratitude and fulfillment. That so-called humiliation that had begun at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, that hastily obtained red marriage certificate, in the end, it didn't become my joke. Instead, it opened the most magnificent and happiest chapter of my life. I held Oriana's hand tightly, our fingers interlocked. True love eternal, life at its peak. This was my perfect ending.